Ian Buruma, do you believe there is any such thing as Islamofascism?
I think it's a misleading term. I mean, there's definitely a violent revolutionary movement inside the Islamic world, but I think Islamic fascism is used by people who deliberately want to compare it to the fascism or National Socialism of the 1930s. And I think that's misleading because it has no similar military or state power behind it. But that doesn't mean there isn't a radical revolutionary doctrine within Islam which is dangerous and so on, but I think the historical comparison is unfortunate.
But the Iranian Republic is certainly state power.
Yes, but I wouldn't call that a fascist republic. I mean, it's a strange hybrid of theocracy and a certain degree of democracy, and it's nasty in its way and can be belligerent and possibly dangerous, but I don't think it's the same as, or is even comparable really to Hitler's Germany or Mussolini's Italy.
Would you say that militant Islamism is mainly about religion or about politics?
Well, I suppose you'd have to say it's about both, but I think it's useful to distinguish it from religious fundamentalism, and the two are often confused. Fundamentalism can be purely a personal thing about living according to a certain religious orthodoxy in your life. It doesn't have to have a political program. Militant Islamism is, by definition, a political program, and to establish a certain idea of a religious theocracy, of course. So, yes, it is political and it is religious at the same time.
But do you think that we tend to overemphasize the religious element?
Well, we overemphasize it if we see it as somehow inherent in Islam, as though underneath it all Muslims and the entire Islamic world is somehow dedicated to a particular political goal, which I think is not the case. But inside the Islamic world there is a definite Islamist, political, radical Islamist ideology, and this should not be denied, but it should be carefully defined and isolated from the rest of the Islamic world if we're going to fight back successfully.
Do you think that the Quran is a more problematic text than its Jewish and Christian equivalents?
I don't know the Quran well enough to answer that with any kind of expertise. I'm sure there are very problematic passages in the Quran, just as there are in the Old Testament. It all depends on how it's used and how it's interpreted and so on. So I think it's a little bit of a red herring to go too deeply into what it says in the Quran. What you have to look at is how believers in the Quran behave or how they interpret it.
Do you see anything in Islam that makes it incompatible with democracy, for instance?
Incompatible? No, because I think there is not that much in the world today that gives one hope, but two places that are hopeful, in my view, are Indonesia and Turkey. And both do seem to have found a way to combine a majority population of Muslims with democratic politics. And in the case of Turkey, it's actually an Islamic party that seems to be more democratic than the secular regime was before. So I think it can be combined.
Holland had the murder of Theo van Gogh that you've just written a book about. Sweden and Denmark have had their cartoon wars. Do you think we've seen the end of this type of thing?
No, I don't think we've seen the end of it, because I think that the problems of integrating the Muslim population in Europe are not going to go away immediately. It takes a lot of time. And whatever happens in the Middle East, even though the problems there are very different from those faced by Muslims in Europe, the two are linked. So things that happen in the Middle East can fire up people living in Europe who have problems of their own. And so I don't think it's going to go away very quickly.
And what future do you see for the Muslim minority in Europe then?
Well, it depends on too many factors to be able to prophesize with any conviction, but I think, and of course I hope, that in time they will become integrated European citizens, and many of them already are, of course. And the ones who adamantly refuse to be integrated as European citizens are a minority, within a minority. And there will be a violent, radical element of that, and they're not going to go away. But I think given time, given more flexible economic policies, given also changing attitudes amongst the non-Muslim population of Europe, I think they will become European citizens and who are the same as all others.